Hello, CRI students. Mr. T speaking. Wanted to share some information and let's have a talk about conflict. No matter who we are, no matter how peaceful we want to be, no matter how much we want people to like us, conflict happens every single day for adults, kids. It doesn't matter if we're looking for it or if that conflict finds us, we all experience some level of conflict. One of the big things that we are going to continue to focus on at CRI is in counseling is to break apart what types of conflict there are. There are really, when we want to boil it down to it, there are three types of conflict that we really discuss here at school. There is things that people do that are rude things. There are things that a person doesn't think about what they're saying, or they don't do it intentionally. They don't do it on maybe don't even do it on purpose. Mean is something that's done on purpose with the intent to hurt someone. Bullying is a completely different conversation, which we will delve more into and jump more into in another video, in another discussion that we have. But bullying is something that's done repeatedly on purpose. So it happens more than once. It's done purposely, and it's with the intent or the goal of trying to make someone feel lesser than or trying to hurt someone on purpose. And so repeatedly on purpose, and usually that person that's doing it has more power than another, and we can talk about what that power looks like. But all three of these things, conflict, involve at least two people. Want the main objective, the thing that we want students will be able to, that's what this slide is kind of hitting on, is discussing different strategies, ways to combat or to battle that conflict, and talk about effective and ineffective ways that don't really help us respond to our conflicts. Why? Because, well, this is something that happens in every person's day, every person's life. We all experience conflict. So stop and think. Whenever there are people, there will be conflict. Why? Well, for some people, conflict exists because they're too much like the person that they have conflict with. Maybe you've been told that you're just like your brother, or that your personality is just like another family member of yours, like your mom or your dad. And so because you're so alike, you battle a lot. Or maybe the reason that people have conflict, and this is a lot more common, is that we all have unique points of view. We all have unique differences in our personality, and those don't always get along with one another. So when we think about strategies, and we use this word as adults a lot, a good way of thinking about a strategy might be able to use some of my favorite characters and one of my favorite superheroes, Batman. I'll explain here in the next slide. If you've never seen this, I'm going to nerd out for just a little bit. One of the coolest things that I think every kid and every adult who's seen Batman before has wondered where he gets these awesome gadgets and toys. And one of the things that he has that's one of the coolest, other than the Batmobile, is probably his utility belt. Now, here is an artist's imagination rendering or drawing up what they think the utility belt would have on it. It might have a place for a gas pellet. It might have a place for a first aid kit. That's what's open on the side there. It might have a place for a blowtorch. Oh, that would be crazy. Or a place for the bat cuffs. When Batman would break this out on the 1966 TV show, he had all kinds of gadgets that were on it. And that still is a main part of Batman, even to this day, is how diverse his utility belt is. Now, think about it. If Batman were trying to handle a problem where explosives were around, maybe the Joker or Two-Face had put up a set of explosives, would it be the smartest idea for him to break out his blowtorch to cut away maybe those restrictions, or like if he was tied up to cut back those ropes that he was tied up with? Maybe not, because if he's using a blowtorch and there's explosives, that can make it even more dangerous. He might want to use a different tool on his belt. In the same way that Batman has different tools for different scenarios, different conflicts that he experiences, we in real life have different tools that we need to use at different times. Not every tool is going to work for every single scenario, just like Batman's blowtorch on his utility belt is not going to work for every single scenario. So, what is a strategy? Or these things that are on your imaginary utility belt? Well, a strategy is an action plan that you think will work in a given situation. We're going to talk about 9 strategies that if you're imagining yourself with the imaginary utility belt, like Batman, these are things to help you solve your conflicts. We won't talk about fighting or running away because these are not strategies that solve anything. So here's number 1 of the 9 strategies that we really talk about a lot here at CRI, and it comes from the curriculum Too Good for Violence. One of the strategies that's important, I just said running away doesn't work. This is not running away. This strategy is called steering clear. If you notice, this is a Volkswagen Bug. It's the type of car. It looks like it's driving up a mountain pass, and there's a sign ahead that says steer clear. First off, a Volkswagen Bug is not a good car to take up in the mountains. So this guy or gal is already off to a bad start with the vehicle that they chose. But the sign clearly says steer clear because there's a rock slide ahead. Now, it's not about being brave. It's not about being fearless. It's just not a good idea to go near a rock slide when you're not prepared for it. And for some of us, there are people or scenarios that we drive into. If we are the car, we drive into these problems, and we can easily just turn around and avoid that problem. Not run away, not be scared, but know that every time we go around a certain scenario or a certain person, or maybe even a certain game that we like to play at recess, that it always causes this negative thing to happen where we have a blow up or a blowout. It's not worth it. So in this situation, the person that's driving the car would turn around because they know that their rock slide is waiting for them. Think, students, what situation, what game, or maybe what personalities even are people or problems that every time you go near them, nothing good happens from it. Maybe the scenario or the strategy on your utility belt to use is to steer clear. Number 2, not sweating the small stuff. A bigger question to ask ourselves is this conflict that we're experiencing, is it going to matter based on a 5 rule? And let me explain the 5 rule. A question to ask ourselves is this problem going to matter 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, or 5 weeks from now? If it's a problem that's still going to matter or going to persist or be a big deal in 5 minutes, that might not be the biggest problem. But if it's still going to exist 5 hours or 5 days from now, that might be something that is worth giving our energy to. But one of the things we need to ask ourselves with the 5 rule is don't sweat the small stuff. If it's not a big deal, why are we giving our energy to it? That's number 2 on the strategy list. Number 3, choosing by chance. Now, obviously, these people are drawing straws, if you're familiar with drawing straws. We don't walk around, I don't know about you, but I don't walk around carrying straws in my back pocket to solve problems. But how many of us rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to go first or who has to do a certain chore? Even in my house and in my family, we play rock, paper, scissors to decide who takes out the dog. And we have a rule. 2 out of 3 losses so 2 out of 3 games of rock, paper, scissors. If you lose 2 of those times, no complaints, no fussing, it's your turn to take out the dog. So we don't carry straws around with us, but we could choose by chance by doing rock, paper, scissors. How many of you use this on a daily basis? Next one, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about I statements or stating your feelings in another lesson. But notice the person. They're saying, I feel, and then naming that feeling when you. Let me talk about this strategy for a second. I statements or stating your feelings do not mind control someone into or force someone into doing what you want them to do. But if someone is being rude, meaning they're doing it on accident, they maybe aren't thinking about what they're doing, stating your feelings could be a strategy in that conflict to let them know. I like to think that an I statement or stating your feelings is like drawing a line in the sand about what should not be crossed. And there's always those people or those personalities that are going to try to cross that line after you tell them not to. But in this scenario, if I could say, I feel uncomfortable when you joke about that in front of me, or I feel disrespected when you call me that name. If a person was doing it on accident and it was just a rude behavior, now you know that that conflict is only rude because they've been basically warned. They basically have been told what the boundary is, what that line is they shouldn't cross. And if they keep crossing it, it wasn't an accident, was it? So, like I said, this scenario does not mind control someone into stopping. But what it does really clearly help us figure out is the conflict you're having just rude behavior from someone else? Or is it a conflict that you're having that is purposeful, that that person's doing it because they mean to? And maybe they're even doing it as a bullying way because they know that you can't stop them. By naming your feeling and what action they are provoking, you're making it very clear. If you don't do this step, someone might not know that they've crossed a boundary with you. It's important to point out that the third word, I feel, the third word the word that comes after I feel has to be a feeling. A lot of us like to put these statements together and say, I feel like you're a jerk when you call me names. And that's not an I statement because if you notice the third word I said, I feel like you're a jerk, like is not a feeling. I feel disrespected when you call me names actually is an I statement. And we'll talk more about this in another video. Apologizing. I think it's important that we all are skilled in the art of apologizing. Some of us, though, can apologize too much. Look at this picture. Do you think this guy has a reason to apologize? Yeah, he clearly spilled something all over this person. Now, some of us apologize for problems that we had no control over or that we couldn't have stopped the result from happening. And so for some of us, this is a strategy we use too much. We apologize all of the time. But when we have caused an action, it is an appropriate strategy to use an apology. Agreeing to disagree. Boy, this can be a strategy that kids, parents, and grandparents can all use. There's certain things that we just don't discuss with people because we know it's going to end a bad way. It's like agreeing to disagree is steering clear with our words. We know that certain topics we're not going to agree on. Let me give an example. I am a Denver Broncos fan. Go Broncos. Most people in Missouri are not, sadly. So if I'm talking with a teacher about the Denver Broncos and they are a Kansas City Chiefs fan, we're never going to really agree. We might agree that the Raiders, another NFL team, are terrible because they're an ally of both, or they're an enemy. They're a rival of both the Broncos and the Chiefs. But if anything else, if I'm talking to a Chiefs fan about football, we're probably not going to agree. So it's probably wiser for us to talk about something else. Agreeing to disagree is a huge strategy for conflict. Getting help. The strategy that we've sometimes overuse for some kids and for some adults, while others never think to do this. On this strategy about getting help is asking yourself, have I done anything to try to solve this problem before going to an adult? What strategy did I use for my utility belt before asking for an adult's help? Clearly, I want this to be very, very well stated. If it is a safety concern towards yourself or someone else, it is always appropriate to use the conflict strategy of getting help. But when it is something rude or mean, what other strategy could you use prior to asking a teacher or parent to solve your problem? Compromise. These two guys both want a piece of pizza. There's only one. They're splitting it in half. They've come up with a better way. I'll give a little bit and you'll give a little bit. This can be what we do on the playground. It can be with the way we use our time. It can be with the entertainment that we choose, where both parties, both sides of the conflict get a little bit of what they want. Now, are they getting all of it? No, but they're getting some of what they actually wanted, which is a strategy called compromise. And a win-win. This is where an activity can't be agreed on, so we choose a better path. We choose something that we didn't think about. We don't go towards one person's choice and we don't go towards the other person's choice, but we brainstorm and think of a better way. So this is the 9th strategy. Now, there is a workbook page that if you're in class, I'm handing out to you right now, or that your teachers have available for you. I'm going to also hopefully make that available digitally for students to look at, but this just shows the 9 strategies. I think it's really helpful to have these 9 strategies in front of us whenever we're thinking about conflict that we experience. Are there more than 9 strategies to solving problems? Absolutely. Will you try some of these and they won't work? Sure. But having a physical or visual reminder of how to solve problems is really helpful. I have the 9 strategies from this workbook page framed in my office. I look at it every day, and it reminds me on how I handle my conflicts. So choosing a strategy depends on the type of conflict you're having. And on that sheet as well, it also has a matching activity that shows, can you, on the back of it, can you identify the strategy that they used based on the name of it? So here's a review of the 9 strategies. Steering clear. Don't sweat the small stuff. Choose by chance. You don't have to have straws for this. You can use rock, paper, scissors. Stating your feelings, also known as an I statement. Apologizing when you are the party that's caused the problem or caused the action. Agreeing to disagree. Getting help. Compromising, and going for a win-win. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope you will visually put these 9 strategies in front of you because I'm telling you, we all need a utility belt.